And good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday edition of Helping Seniors of Brevard. I'm John Harper. Let's get things underway as we introduce to you right now the host of Helping Seniors of Brevard and the executive director of the organization as well, and that's none other than Kerry Fink. Hi, Kerry. Good afternoon. And coming in here on the heels of a very successful, in fact, an outstanding fundraising event this past Saturday at the American Muscle Car Museum for Helping Seniors of Brevard, and you got to feel very proud.
Oh, it was so exciting. It was a great night. As you know, John, you were there. And I was just telling our guest today is none other, well, he's not a guest, he's family. He's Bill Johnson, board-certified elder law attorney. Really, the expert is in the house. We're going to talk about elder law scams today, and he was showing me some of the material he brought with him. This is going to be a really important show. Hello, Bill.
Good afternoon, Kerry.
But to your point, John, one thing that is absolutely not a scam is the Helping Seniors car raffle, because it actually did several things. It keeps us going now solidly into the next year because, as you said, John, it was a record-breaking event on every single level. So the first thing, on behalf of Joe Steckler, our president founder, and Nancy Deerdorf, our operations director, and our entire Helping Seniors team, I just want to thank everyone who made this event possible and put it into the record books. It was by far the most successful, the largest Helping Seniors car raffle that we've had to date. Now, Joe has a history of going and doing these back to 1996 when he and AJ first started using car raffles, because at that time Joe was trying to build the Joe's Clubs. And AJ, his friend, said, hey, maybe I have an idea we can work together on a fundraiser that's going to help you get that done. And so the same thing a number of years back, Joe said, why wouldn't we try the same thing for Helping Seniors? And that was our 6th annual Helping Seniors car raffle. And we got together at the American Muscle Car Museum. That's Mark Pylock's astounding collection of cars out there. And John, you were there, so you you can attest to this. But I already knew that we had record attendance there. I mean, we could tell that. We already knew we had record number of people there. What I didn't know is that Mark had his folks counting cars out there, and he sent me a nice email, first of all, inviting us back for next year. Thank you, Mark. There's no way we could do this stuff if you weren't so kind and generous and allowing us to have our car raffle grand drawing there. But he told me, he said they actually counted how many cars were out there. So there was there's 600 in the paved parking lot. There was 400 over in the overflow. 50 they parked up under they have those big electrical solar panels. And he went through the whole little litany and came up with there was more than 1,150 cars parked on the grounds of the Muscle Car Museum, which was a record for anything they'd ever done before.
Wow.
So, and talk about your experience. So I have to tell this story. So John Harper, right inside the front door, we do this thing called the 50-50 raffle. So in the 50-50 raffle, you put in money, and it's just a fun thing for that night. And at the end, they pull a winning ticket. The winning ticket gets half of the money, and half of the money goes to charity. And John, it was time for us to all go up on stage, and I remember we were all having to run and ask you guys to wind it up because we needed to get to the stage so that we would keep the car raffle moving on time. And you just said people were buying tickets right and left. It was
they were buying tickets, and unfortunately, Kerry, we ran out of tickets. And we were scrambling, and the people were kind enough to kind of go in a holding pattern and wait until we got more tickets. And they did stand by. They did, once we got the tickets, contribute to the 50-50 raffle, and it was a great success. We could have easily doubled the amount of tickets that we sold.
Yeah, no, I am sure. And, so our president and founder, Joe Steckler, and his wife, Terry, were there. And so he got to give a really good, kind, heartfelt thank you to the crowd that was there. And then Mark Pylock, the owner of the museum, and his lovely wife, Tatiana, they got up on stage, and we got the big golden barrel up there. And he starts, our friends from Hibiscus Court, Ashley Caswell and Amanda Walker, they're up there spinning the drum and getting everything set. And then Tatiana reaches her hand in, pulls out a winning ticket. And Mark is like probably the best show guy ever because he knows how to read this, and he gets the whole crowd like in the palm of his hand. He's reading out these numbers. And so he gets to the last number. And we're always curious, is somebody going to be in the house or we're going to have to get them on the phone? Because if you remember, last year we pulled the number. Joe goes, I know this name. He's bought tickets every year I've ever done a raffle. But he wasn't in the house. We tried to call him on the phone. In fact, he got back to us the next Monday. His name is David Odahowski. He goes, I come in, I'm listening to my messages, and I hear I won the raffle. And he's like, this is the best news I could have possibly heard. He took a Kia Sportage. So here we are this year, and Mark starts reading this, and he reads the last number. We don't hear anything. You know, there's 2,500 people here, and we're not hearing like, woo, I won. and so we're like, well, maybe the winner's not here. And he goes, well, I can tell you this. The winner is from Brevard County. So everybody's like, ooh. And then he goes, I can also tell you this. The winner is a lady. And then about that time, we finally heard a scream. It took her a minute to figure out she had the winning number. She was there in the museum. Her name is Gail McGinnis. She's right here in Brevard County. So she runs up to the stage. We actually put the little clip out on Facebook, so it's fun to go watch if you go Helping Seniors of Brevard. She gets up there, and so Mark welcomes her. And, of course, the first question is, since it was, which car do you pick? Remember, you could take the Dodge Challenger, you could take the Chevy Camaro, you could take the Kia Sportage, or you could take the Mazda Miata. So everybody wanted to know, what did she pick? But before he even finished asking the question, she just yells out, Camaro! And so she's now driving a brand new Camaro. How cool is that?
That's really cool. And the whole crowd on Saturday night, Kerry, was in a very festive mood. Everybody was just excited about being there, seeing the cars in the museum, and having the opportunity to win one as well. And by the way, let's not forget and thank Mark for,
yes.
I don't know how many pizzas he bought.
You know,
do you know?
He bought, I heard, at least 70 pizzas, let alone that Andrew Mackey told me that he had placed the largest order that he had ever placed on behalf of the museum with Fresh Market. So Mark spared no expense. He has really gotten behind this, and there's just nothing we can say that would say we're grateful enough. But, you know, it was what I wanted to tell you was kind of a postscript about this. So this lady yells out about she wants the Camaro, Gail McGinnis, our winner. So I literally come here to the radio station today. We're also out. Nancy Deerdorf, our operations director, is out at the Wickham Park Pavilion because Nina Varuso, who does all the great senior expos, is having her mega expo today. So I see Jennifer Barton with Seniors Helping Seniors out there because they have a table and they're part of the whole event. And if you remember, Jennifer Barton is all Team Dodge. So I said, you know, here's the thing now. That's two. So we've done this now. We've given away. Now this is 2 Camaros. We've only given away Dodge Challengers. So I said, Jennifer, how you guys as Team Dodge going to step up the game and see if you know now you got to really go over the top next year to win this. So the good news is there will be a 7th annual Helping Seniors car raffle, and we'll come back to that as we get into 2023 and at least get dates set, and so you can put that in your calendar, be there. But just again, thank you so much to everybody who made that work. It was a great night, and thank you, John, because I saw you being mobbed by every time I walked by. It was like a mob of people, and they're just like throwing money at him, going, "I need my tickets."
I've never had that happen with people throwing money at me, but I happily took it, and they were very grateful just to be there. And they were really enjoying themselves, and I was delighted to see so many wonderful people show up and support Helping Seniors of Brevard.
Yeah, it's so important because it's the only way that we can keep doing what we're doing. And thank you, Bill Johnson, with the law office, William A. Johnson, because, you know, you guys are always in it. I know you couldn't be there on Saturday, but you guys always support us and help us in every way. And you guys were in office. You had the tickets at the office and everything. And it really was a magnificent night, Bill.
Oh, fantastic.
So we are going to dive right into our topic because I was emailing with Bill, and I said, what would be good that we could talk about that maybe we haven't covered in a while? And he immediately emailed right back. He goes, we need to talk about senior scams because There's a lot of stuff that's out there. It's you can't pick up anything without hearing some horror story. Where do we begin on this whole conversation?
Well, I think we begin, first off, we need to let the people out there know what the numbers are. And I did a little research, and I came up with elder exploitation is about $3 billion a year.
With a B.
Yeah, for the U.S. alone.
Wow.
And roughly it falls into two different categories, what they call elder theft, which would mean where the victim knows the perpetrator, and elderly scams, where the victim does not know who is the perpetrator. Right. And elder theft is things that could be done by like a friend, a financial advisor, caregiver, neighbor, family member. These include things like stealing Social Security or other checks, transferring property or other assets into the fraudster's name, exploitation or power of attorney arrangements, or legal guardianship to access funds, maxing out credit cards in the victim's name, liquidation of retirement accounts or other savings, that kind of thing. Scams, by contrast, are where you do not, the perpetrator does not know the victim, and we have a whole few varieties of those. One of those is romance scams.
Oh, yeah.
Where they try to set up some sort of online romantic relationship, which then turns into a request for money. There is the grandparent scam, where they try to tell them a grandchild's in some sort of emergency situation. Usually they're in jail and need bail money or something like that, and send that money right now. And then you got your lottery and sweepstakes scams, which is another big part of it. And obviously government imposter scams, where they pose as the Social Security agency or the IRS and make threats unless you pay this or give us this information. And then they use that to exploit the individual. So there are a whole variety of ways seniors are exploited out there. And those are just a sampling of what has happened. Just for example, romance scams alone, according to AARP, $547 million in 2021, 5 times greater than the amount that was stolen in 2019.
5 times
Yes.
in just 3 years.
Yes.
Wow.
And the reason I wanted to do this topic is I see this at my office with increasing, the numbers keep getting more and more and more, the number of people we see who are victims.
Yeah, I remember telling you the story just before we went on the air. There's a Guardian friend of ours who was talking about that the reason one of his wards was because the person had won the Nigerian lottery. And apparently in the process of collecting the winnings, all the money went out and it didn't come in, which, is sort of the whole point of the Nigerian lottery scam. But apparently it's like becoming more and more prevalent. We were talking also that we've seen about the guy who did the reverse hack on these call centers and got in and got some photos and things of what these guys were up to. But it's pretty brutal. And for seniors, it's costing, when you said the number $3 billion, that's pretty intense.
I think we were talking right before the show that my mother actually won the sweepstakes and put $6,000 in the middle of a magazine, put it into a FedEx package, and shipped it overseas. Wow. And I was like, Mom, why didn't you ask me?
Yeah.
I could have told you that was not what to do.
Unbelievable. But, I was also sharing, I went through the same with my mom in that we would have this conversation that she would say, but I won this, but I have to send $60 so that they can send it. I said, why don't you just call them and tell them to deduct it from your check? Well, these things seem logical, but sometimes, particularly for seniors, that is one of the reasons why it's a vulnerable class, because if they're not necessarily thinking with the acuity that they've had maybe earlier in life, that makes them particularly vulnerable to this kind of stuff, Bill.
There is. And I'm glad you brought that up because we get bombarded with requests and scams and things like that all day long. I mean, we're bombarded by I don't know how many commercials on TV a day and radio and things like that. But we have a center in our brain that tells us to differentiate between what's real and what's not real, and what you need and what you don't need, and that kind of thing. But as you get older, that center of your brain, the frontal lobe where your executive function lies, can become more and more, for lack of a better word, disabled or diminished is probably a better word. And so you're not able to necessarily tell between what is a good deal and what is obviously something that's really bogus. And so there is right now a group that is involved with coming up with a tool. And they're going to develop a tool to screen seniors for vulnerability to scams.
Wow.
Because it's gotten out of control, and it's so prevalent that now the researchers are getting involved. And the University of Central Florida, the University of Florida, and the University of Miami are teaming up to solve that problem. And they're looking at what are the risk factors for scams, fraud, and misinformation among older adults, including seniors with mild cognitive impairment. And the interesting thing that I've learned since I became aware of this is that when somebody gets, and by the way, this is a layperson talking, not a medical professional.
Right.
I don't profess to be a doctor, and I did not stay at a Holiday Inn. But as far as dementia goes, there are several steps into getting into dementia and getting to the point where you are unable to remember things. But one of the first things that goes down that path is actually your executive function starts to go. But nobody notices that because you are still remembering things.
Okay.
It's much more obvious when you can't remember things. People go, oh, well, mom's just slowing down. She gets a little confused now that she's older or something. Well, what's happening is that executive function area is getting affected, and they're unable to start making great decisions.
Right.
And as that gets more and more affected as we age, and it doesn't happen to everybody, but it does happen to a lot of people, that then all of a sudden, they start becoming very susceptible to scams. And I think you and me talked about before the show, Kerry, how it seems like, once they get scammed by one thing, the next thing is the floodgates open up.
Right.
And every scammer in the world seems to know that they're vulnerable. And it seems to me, at least, having represented a lot of people in this situation, that they must, as soon as one scam works, they must sell that person's name, address, phone number, email address on the dark web.
Yeah.
And people buy it up and start hitting them up for money. And it's gotten sometimes so bad with some of my clients, we've had to change phone numbers, unplug the computers. We've had to reroute the mail just to keep the victim from getting victimized more.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about. I was explaining with my mom. She had sent off $20 or something because she was supposed to pay the cover charge or shipping charge or something for her $1 million. I mean, like if you think about it logically, you're just like, well, why don't you just send me $998,998 or whatever it is, and keep your shipping charge. Well, it doesn't work that way because the whole thing's a scam. So the problem is, I guess once you sent that $20 in, like my mother did, then all of a sudden it's like the mailbox is just like flooded with everything. Here's one from Switzerland. Here's one from Bulgaria. They're like, you just won the Bulgarian lottery. It's incredible.
And it's amazing. And the phone just never stops ringing. I've had clients that have disconnected their phone, gotten a new phone, and somehow the scammers have gotten the new phone number already.
Well, and the other thing, Bill, isn't that we were always taught from a young age that you're supposed to be polite to people, and so particularly an older generation, when they get a call, they feel like they're being rude if they hang up. It's just a whole thing.
And part of that's a great point, Kerry, because part of the reason seniors today are getting exploited or scammed is because we've got such new technologies that you're dealing with. There's been a whole tech evolution and reliance on technology which is unprecedented for seniors to deal with. And then plus you got some of the, I guess, isolation and loneliness. If they're alone, that makes them susceptible to trusting other people. Yeah. So you got, this new tech, the isolation, the loneliness, combine that with a little, lapse in the executive function, and you got a recipe for exploitation.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I know that we were also talking about Phil Archer, who's our state attorney in our area. He's really very much about this. He publishes a monthly little one-page newsletter where he's trying to let us know what the latest scams are that are out there, and you can access them on his Facebook page, Phil Archer, state attorney. And he's, it's fun. Well, not fun. It's scary, actually, if you think about it, to get these each month, because he's always uncovering, here's the latest thing that we're getting to hear about at our office. And it's pretty creative each time, Bill.
And I get those.
Yeah.
I do get those. And, part of the problem is once the money's gone, it's almost impossible to get it back.
Yeah.
And I don't care whether we're talking about a theft or we're talking about a scam. Scams are probably harder because usually the money's gone overseas. Not all the time, but most of the time it's gone overseas. Thefts, people, the reason people steal is they want the money to spend it. And either on their bills or on something else or living a different lifestyle. And so usually what happens is, if it's been stolen by somebody, it's gone. It's been spent. So it's very hard to get the money back.
Yeah, and as we get into the second half of the show, we're going to talk a little bit more, because as we get to the second part of the show, I want to talk to you about, how does this show up in your office? I mean, you're the guy that really is always telling people, let's try to get you protected as much as we can so that the things as you're aging are going to work the way you want them to. And yet there's always going to be something that comes up, and we're going to talk more about that on the second half of the show. So stick around as we talk elder laws and scams here at Helping Seniors Radio.
Our time coming up on 12:33 this Wednesday afternoon. You're listening to Helping Seniors of Brevard, heard every Wednesday, 12 noon to 1 o'clock. I'm John Harper. Right now, let's get back to more of the show with your host and the Executive Director of Helping Seniors of Brevard. Here's Kerry Fink. And Kerry, again, congratulations on a wonderful event that you spearheaded and took care of over the weekend on this past Saturday at the Muscle Car Museum. A huge event for Helping Seniors of Brevard, and congratulations on the success of that event.
Well, thank you, John. And as I wrote Andrew Mackey, who is the he is the events coordinator there at the museum, I sent him a note and I thanked him. I said, what's really so great about this whole thing is that you guys do all the work and we look like $1 million because of it. And so I'm really, really that grateful, because they really do. They make it a wonderful experience for everybody there. And literally, I've said this in a board meeting, I get the privilege of working with the best people in the universe, because our board of directors and the people, when they get out and they help us with all those hot Saturdays out at car shows, selling tickets and just whatever it takes to make it happen. And to everyone who bought a ticket and helped support the work of Helping Seniors, maybe you didn't get a car. I hope you had a nice night at the museum, but you definitely are helping seniors, and that is so important, because here we are, we're in our 12th year of service to the community, and this doesn't happen without financial support. So I'm going to real quickly bring in one more fundraiser that we're in the middle of. before we get back to our conversation on elder scams with our special guest, who is board certified elder law attorney Bill Johnson with William A. Johnson, PA. And what I want to talk about just for a half a second is the Helping Seniors Foundation Cruise. And this is a great opportunity with the Helping Seniors Travel Club. We are doing 2 sailings in January 2023. One is a 2-night sailing. First of all, how this came about was Chris Morse, who is the director of the Travel Club. He is an expert travel agent. He has been a travel agent since, he says, the dinosaurs roamed the earth, which more practically means 1982 is when he actually became a travel agent. But he's special needs certified. He and his wife, Betty, they run the agency, and they said, why don't we get people together from Brevard County, go cruising? We'll get the cruise line to make a donation back to Helping Seniors, so they get a great cruise. Helping Seniors gets a fundraiser, and they get to go sailing with people locally from the local port. So on January 6th and January 8th, we are sailing on the MSC Meraviglia, which is a beautiful brand new ship, and sailing in and out of Port Canaveral. So there's a 2-night sailing. If all you have is a weekend and a quick getaway, you can join us for that. It's a fundraiser for Helping Seniors. Or if you want to go for 7 nights and check out Bahamas and Mexico, you're welcome to do that. And that's a 7-night cruise, and many people are just putting them together and saying, I'll go for all 9 nights. And John, one of the things that makes this cruise particularly fun is not only the experience of sailing with local friends, because you always make great friends on a cruise ship, but then you always end up becoming Facebook buddies with them, and they go back to Illinois, and you send pictures of your grandkids and things like that. But here, when you make friends on board the ship, since we're all from Brevard County, it's like, hey, let's get together, for lunch on Tuesday. And so really it's a great socialization thing. But the other thing that happens, because Chris is a really good negotiator, he has gotten a deal that if you know anything about cruise line prices, you go in, if you go online, they say, oh, you can cruise the Caribbean for $399, or they'll give you can go for a week for $399. And then you start to go and start clicking your way through it. It's almost scammy, Bill, when you think about it, because the price that you pay is not the price that you start with. They say it'll be $399. You click the next page. Oh, but there's $199 worth of government fees and taxes. Oh, and when you get on board, you have to pay gratuities, which is like $15 a day. And oh, you want internet. You got to pay extra for that. Oh, you want to buy a drink package on board. Oh, you got to pay extra for that. So the point is, for your $399, you probably got like an inside cabin, and then you paid all this other stuff. Well, the deal that Chris was able to work out, and it's literally space available. So when the space is gone, the space is gone. But he worked this out. Listen to this price. And I'm going to tell you the price. You don't have to reach into your pocket again. I mean, you could if you wanted to, but it's literally done. $864 a person for the 7-night cruise. Let me tell you what that includes. That includes the cruise. It includes the government taxes and fees. It includes prepaid gratuities, so you're not paying those when you get on board. It includes the Wi-Fi package on board, so you don't have to pay extra for Wi-Fi. And it includes a drink package, which is normally like $35 or $40 per day. And
that's incredible.
And it is not an inside cabin. It is not an outside cabin. It is a balcony stateroom.
Wow.
So when you can get all that at that price for 7-night sailing, it's hard to match that deal. And the 2-night sailing is a real simple. It includes it doesn't include the drink package because it's just a 2-night sailing. But if you pay $264 per person on a double occupancy, the 2-night package includes all your meals. You've paid all your government taxes, fees. You paid your gratuities. You can't rent a beachfront hotel for that for one night, let alone 2 nights. And you're going to be traveling with friends from Brevard County. So how do you find out information about this? The best way, the easiest way, is just give Nancy Deerdorf, who is our operations director, a call at 321-473-7770 and say, I'd like more information. How do I find out more about this? And she'll get you connected with Chris and our team who is working on that. And already the group is up to a couple hundred people. So I think it's Chris told me it's over 100 people for each sailing already. So we're hoping we're going to have a really nice group on board. It's a fundraiser for helping seniors, and it's just a lot of fun. So,
Kerry, before you get back to the interview here with Bill Johnson, very interesting. But just a final PS to our event
Yes.
this past Saturday night. It was interesting to meet so many people who became aware of helping seniors of Brevard for the first time. So we
Absolutely.
turned on a lot of people to the organization who didn't know a whole lot about us, but they were very excited about the mission and what helping seniors of Brevard does. So that was very successful as well, making new acquaintances.
you said it so well, and I know I've talked about this a lot with Bill on the air when we're talking about serious legal questions, because one of the things is so many people are moving to Florida, and so that's something that his office helps people do. Is like they come in, they think they have a plan together, and then that's the kind of thing that Bill's office does, is help make sure it's set up the right way for Florida. But that's the point. People come to Florida, they don't know who to call, they don't know where to start. They learn about helping seniors, and we need all the help we can get. So you can always go to helpingseniors.brevard.org, learn a little bit about everything we do. We've operated the County Senior Information Helpline now into our 12th year, and then we publish a lot of information where we're always trying to help people make the most of their senior years, is I guess the way I'd say it, John.
That is a good way to put it, Kerry, and to kind of put a wrap on that. But again, a great success, and congratulations to you for making this happen.
Oh, well, thank you. But I can't take the credit. It's everybody worked together. So, Bill, with that kind of as an opening, I want to kind of circle back, because if we are trying to help seniors really make the most for their lives, one of the things we got to do is we got to keep them out of danger. And you've really done a lot of research into what's going on with all these scams and some things like that.
So, yeah, there's quite a few scams out there, and quite a few of them take a variety of variations of the same form, I would say.
Right.
So I'll run through some of those for you. If somebody calls you up and basically asks you for your Medicare number, don't give that out, because they are basically just looking to bill Medicare for unnecessary tests or services, not necessarily for your benefit. Also, if you get called up by somebody representing to be Apple and they tell you they need to download any desk onto your phone, do not do that. That gives somebody remote access to your phone.
Wow.
Anybody call you from the IRS saying, hey, there's a warrant out for your arrest, and if you don't pay these taxes by today over the phone right now, you're going to go to jail?
With a gift card, right?
Exactly. That the IRS does not do that.
Can I tell? I got to interject this story. So I had a little. The guy was 88 years old at the time. A little pastor friend of ours. And he calls one day, he's panicked. He goes, the IRS, I've got to pay this much to the IRS. He was a sharp guy, though. He gets in his car. He goes, I don't care if it's a scam or not. I'm going down to the IRS. If I owe them money, I want them to tell me. So he was a ornery enough little guy that he got in a car and he went down there. But I mean, obviously, it was a scam, like you're talking about.
The grandparent scam, obviously, They call up and say your grandchild's been arrested, we need money, or he's been in an accident, and we need money to pay for the medical services, that kind of thing. Amazon, I've been getting quite a bit, and they get it as a text message to my phone. It says, we're Amazon, your account's been hacked, go to this link to fix your account. Do not click on the link. It's just a way they're trying to get access into your Amazon account. You can go back and anytime you're contacted by a company or even the government, supposedly via email, all this, just back out of whatever it is, go find the phone number for them and call and ask directly what's going on, instead of hitting the link, because once you hit the link, you give them access to a lot of stuff. Utility company calling up, somebody posing at the utility company and saying that, unless you make a payment immediately over the phone, We're going to turn off your electricity. We haven't gotten the last 2 payments. Don't do that. And also the Social Security Administration. Again, a lot of people pose as them because it's a great way to ask for your Social Security number if you're the Social Security Administration. So that's just a sampling of a few that are out there, and I put it in the form of a phone call, but it could be an email. It could be all kinds of different ways of soliciting you. Nowadays, it can even be a text message.
Yeah.
I get quite a few that are text messages. Some tips, how to keep things safe.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Good.
never reuse passwords. Always use unique and hard to break passwords. So use unique usernames. If you don't have to use your email address, don't.
Yeah.
Because it's easy once somebody has your email address, now all they got to do is break the password. Yeah. Check your accounts frequently. So that's a really good one. You know, if you can go on your accounts and keep, checking. I did that. I was on vacation and I went online to see how much was in my account and noticed there's $500 that was missing.
Whoa.
It turned out that somebody had gotten into my ATM card.
Wow.
So we had to freeze that, and that was in the middle of vacation, so that made a big mess of everything. But you can also now, on a lot of cards, set up where you get notified of every transaction.
Right.
So they send you an email or a text message saying, hey, your card was used here, that kind of thing. Check your credit score. That will turn up things other than stuff that's going on with your bank account. Do not respond to unsolicited emails, texts, or calls. That's a reiteration of what I just said. And then keep updated on what the latest scams are. The digital age has given us a lot of ways that people can take advantage of us. It's also given us a lot of ways we can check up on things and keep appraised. And also, if you can get, I talked about passwords and usernames, but you can also, on a lot of accounts, get a two-factor identification.
Yes.
So now, like when I log into my online banking, it'll send a code to my phone that I have to enter to make sure I am who I say I am. Which, anytime you have two-factor identification, that helps immensely in cutting down the ability of people to get at your accounts.
Yeah, everything that you're talking about is really so important to keep in mind. And I just wanted to share a statistic. Since we have, for example, the Helping Seniors website, helpingseniors@brevard.org, we're not even what I would call like a high target for anything. But we get reports because we have like a monitoring service that lets us know. And I get a report like once a month, more frequently if there's something going on. But you would be interested to know that on each of the little admin logins, it sends us a report and tells us how many attempts there were to log in during a month. And so we will see hundreds and hundreds of login attempts, whereas we're actually probably going in, well, if you thought about it, maybe we go in once a day. If it was that, it would be like 30 times in a month. But when you see 300-400, and then it also goes to show you the countries because it identifies the IP address and tells you where these are coming from. And so if you don't think people are out there out there playing games, they really are. And so they're trying to hit that bank account. They're trying to guess whatever they can. And Bill, as you talked about, if somebody can buy information on the dark web and they get part of the equation, it doesn't take them too long to figure out the rest of it.
Yeah, I saw something where they can crack like a 8-digit, password.
Right.
In literally with a computer within 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then as you build up to 32 and 64 characters, it becomes days and months and things like that to crack one.
Right.
But yeah, a short little password they can break pretty easily.
Yeah, I was surprised because now a lot of places you go, they say, it used to be you had like a 4-digit PIN, then it became an 8-digit password, then they wanted an 8-digit password with all kinds of big letters, small letters, put a special character in there. And now lately it looks like they're asking you to put in 16 characters to make your password.
And of course, everybody takes their old password, just capitalizes the first letter in it,
right.
and then at the end adds the exclamation point.
Yeah.
And they know that too.
Yeah, it's a thing that you really have to be vigilant about. And I remember we were also something we talked about before we started the radio show. I was at a seminar. And Sheriff Ivey was a speaker, and he was talking about the scams, and he said, at the time he was talking about the problem that we were having at the gas pumps, where people were skimming, and so he said then they come up with the chip card, and he said then the bad guys come up with a way to read the chip card when it's in your wallet. He said he goes, it's just an ongoing thing. They're always going to be trying to be one step ahead. And he said the best thing is just what you just said, Bill, is staying vigilant, know what's going on around you. And if it seems a little odd, like I've had this happen inside the Helping Seniors organization. We'll get an email, and somebody in the organization will send me the email and go, what is this about? And I'll say, don't click that link. That's not the link you want. And I said, so we talk about it. Well, why is that happening? And some of the clues are maybe the language is a little off, like you don't get a dear sirs, or kind of thing like that. So you're looking at the language. Is the grammar correct? Yeah, they're getting pretty good about cutting and pasting logos in, but you can still kind of ferret it out a little bit.
I was treasurer of an organization, and I got a request from the president that they needed money, and I contacted the president like, well, what's this about? And they're like, I didn't send that.
Wow.
And it looked like it came. So what they did was basically the organization on their webpage had printed out the officers and their emails and how to contact them. And somebody had just taken that and looked up the treasurer, sent him a request for funds.
Wow.
And, you need to write a check to these people, blah, 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 and send it out immediately. and all they had done is just gone on the page of the organization and figured out who the officers were and who their email or what their email addresses were.
Yeah, and another thing, when people get the calls, we're used to caller ID now. So we're always looking to try to see who's calling. But you also have to be aware how easy it is to spoof that. So a good con artist knows how to put, if they're going to call and say, well, we're calling from the IRS, it's going to come up on your phone as saying RS. If they're going to call from, the jail in Mexico, it's going to come up as Mexico jail or whatever. They know how to do that. So be really careful. And Bill, like we were talking about before, one of the problems is if somebody gets you on the phone, they just need to have a little bit of information to turn it into a whole story. Like apparently the way the grandparents thing works is they're smart enough to get you on the phone and say, hey grandma, this is your grandson. Johnny, is that you? Yes, this is Johnny. And you just gave them the piece of data that they needed to keep working on the scam. So I guess, Bill, as we're talking about this, you've seen it all. People call you at the law office, and you're there trying to help get them set up in the right way. What are some of the best ideas that you have that you're telling the folks that you're working with to try to stay safe on this stuff?
Well, the first thing, contact the bank.
Yeah.
Let them know you've been scammed. Contact law enforcement.
Right.
You can file a report with the Federal Trade Commission.
Okay.
And also, anytime you're worried about your credit, you can always pull a credit report.
Yeah.
But those are the main ones right off the bat. And if it's a credit card thing, notify the credit card company immediately because a lot of times you are insured for that fraud.
Right.
So that you can get the money back. But
well, and this is a point that I've run into is I usually prefer to pay with a credit card versus a debit card because if there's a problem, and there inevitably will be a problem, the credit card, first of all, the credit card company has very strong protections, just like they do for debit cards, but they're playing with their money, not yours. So they can stop the card, get you another card, whatever needs to happen, they can sort that out fairly easy. The challenge is if it happens in your bank account where your debit card is linked, even though you have the same protections, eventually now it's your money while they're trying to sort it out. So that's
correct.
So that's a challenge. So Bill, in general though, we haven't really talked a lot. I know you're really a leader in the community about helping families get together everything that's needed for good protection on elder law. If somebody wants to reach your office and get more information, I know you have a lot of resources on your website, floridaelderlaw.net. But if they want to just call and maybe say, are you doing a seminar or something coming up, how do they reach you?
They can reach us at 321-253-1667.
And we're talking with board-certified elder law attorney Bill Johnson. Law office is William A. Johnson, PA. And it's actually not, your daughter's in there, too. You've got a whole team there. I mean, it's not just you.
It's not just me, no. So, I have a whole team that makes it all possible.
Yeah,
and a lot of good people.
Thank you for doing all the research on this scam stuff, because we were talking about Phil Archer and what he does. We were talking about Sheriff Ivey, but, even Sheriff Ivey, who's the sheriff of the county and at least I think a great sheriff, he's the guy that's saying, like, they're always advancing, so you've always got it. You're always, trying to figure out the next thing. And the last thing I wanted to kind of add in there, you're old enough. You remember the show Dragnet, right? And Joe,
I do.
I'm Joe Friday, my partner Gannon, and we're working out of the Bunko division. And I don't know that these scams are actually so different from the Dragnet days. It's just that now technology gets involved, but they're still playing off of the same things, right?
Correct. They're still using the same, a lot of it is the confidence games that they used to do. A lot of these now are the imposter scams.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's the technology that makes it a little easier for these guys, but it's the same basic thing. Greed, I guess, is one of the things that's a pretty powerful thing. Is like, because that's, you won the lottery and you just got to send $60 to claim your million or whatever. It's incredible.
I agree.
Well, so again, we're talking with board-certified elder law attorney Bill Johnson. And I want to remind you, by the way, like every time we do a radio show or we cover important topics, and we have covered some really good topics here along the way, we archive everything on the Helping Seniors website, which is helpingseniorsofbrevard.org. We also have our Facebook page, Helping Seniors Brevard, and then we also have a YouTube channel, Helping Seniors Brevard. So whether it's the TV shows, whether it's the radio shows, whether, Bill, you've contributed a number of articles, particularly because we've been on this thing about get your aging plan together, get your ducks in a row. You've written a series of good articles. In fact, you have a big article in this month's edition of the Senior Scene magazine. So if you haven't picked up your November edition of Senior Scene magazine, get your copy today. One place you can get a copy, by the way, today, up until 2 o'clock, is out at Wickham Park at the pavilion there, because Nina Varuso has that senior expo. And I'm telling you, there was like hundreds of people out there today. It was a big turnout for it. The weather's nice. It wasn't so hot.
Fantastic.
And Nancy's out there with your copies of Senior Scene magazine, so you can read Bill's great article. And it's just good all the way around. So one more time before we close out, if they do want to call the office and maybe ask a question or something, what's the...
321-253-1667.
Okay. Well, thank you, Bill Johnson, for always sharing. And again, like all those great resources are available at helpingseniorsbrevard.org. Remember that if you want to get information on the Helping Seniors Travel Club cruise, you want to give Nancy a call, 321-473-7770. And I hope that we will see you out on the sunny seas in January. It's going to be a great time. It's a good fundraiser for us. It's a terrific deal for you. And we'll close out today's show by reminding you that on behalf of Joe Steckler, our president and founder, and also Nancy Deerdorf, our operations director, we're looking forward to seeing you next week here on the radio.